just keep that in mind as the world changes around you, that you and I and everybody watching this, you watching this right now, the one thing is never going to change is that we're social mammals, and there is behaviors and ideas and needs and desires and community that will continue regardless of what happens around us. That will always continue. Hold on to that, even as everything changes around you.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the peopleHum interview series. This is your host Neha at peopleHum. peopleHum is an end-to-end, one-view, integrated human capital management automation platform, the winner of the 2019 Global Cody Award for HCM that's specifically built for crafted employee experiences and the future of work. We run the peopleHum blog and channel that receives more than 200,000 visitors a year, and we also publish several interviews with well-known names globally every month. We have with us today Mark Bowden, a global authority on non-verbal communication. Mark has been voted the #1 body language professional in the world for 2 years running. He's a highly sought-after keynote speaker internationally and president of the National Communication Coach Association of Canada. Mark trains groups and individuals on how to use their body language to stand out, win trust, and gain credibility every time that they communicate. As the founder of communication training company Truthplane, his clients include leading business people, teams, politicians, presidents, and CEOs of Fortune 500 companies and prime ministers of G7 powers. He is a best-selling author of 4 books on the subject of body language and human behavior, with his first book, Winning Body Language, now translated into 5 different languages. He's ranked #1 in the world by The Economist and is also a member of the TED community, having spoken at TEDx Toronto. Mark can be seen regularly on Canadian network CTV's daily show, The Social, as the resident body language expert. So with that, we cannot wait to uncover the secrets of how body language can be used as a tool to understand and communicate better. So welcome to peopleHum, Mark. It's a pleasure to have you on board with us today.
Well, thanks for having me. That was a perfect introduction. Thanks for that, and great pleasure to be with you. I'm in Toronto right now. I know you're in Mumbai, so it's great to be able to have this conversation with you. Great pleasure.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Mark, you're the creator of Truthplane. Please do tell us about the wonderful work that you do there.
Yeah, so as you were saying right at the start, we help people all over the world to stand out, to win trust, to gain credibility every time they communicate, including some of the leaders of the G7. We help people who are CEOs of, very well-known, huge multinational companies. We help people who might be the presidents, CEOs and founders of smaller, emerging entrepreneurial companies. Some of those companies you might know, Shopify, for example, Zoom, for example. At the moment, we're helping out. The main thing that we're always trying to do is help people communicate with each other, because we're social mammals as human beings, and the one thing we have to do is communicate with others in order to build what we need to build together.
Absolutely. Everything lies at the base of communication. So I feel like the work that you're doing is absolutely wonderful. So you've been twice voted the #1 body language professional in the world. So could you share some insight on how leaders can be conscious of their body language in order to build teams that can be more forthcoming and efficient in the work that they do?
Yeah, so it really is what you're talking about there, about being more conscious of your body language. Most of the focus that I've put around body language, which, really got me the ranking that I have, has been about not how you judge other people's body language in order to understand what they might be thinking or feeling, though that's really interesting, and I do some work around that. But the most important thing for me is how you use your own body language on purpose in order to get the effects that you want. And so around that, let me just give you 2 little ideas here that might help you around this space that we're in, which is the virtual space right now. And I want you to notice how when I'm communicating with you watching this right now, that every now and again you see my hands come up into frame. Yeah, and you'll see things like open palm gestures from me, which is a universal signal. No tools, no weapons, nothing in my hands. It helps you feel safe and comfortable with me. You'll see what we call baton gestures, which are the gestures that conduct along to the rhythm of my speech. They help you understand my feeling and intention. Not only do you hear it in my voice, but you see it in my body. And you'll also see what we call descriptor gestures. These are the gestures that kind of illustrate what I'm saying. I might say high and low and actually show you that in front of you. The more you can consciously show people with your gestures what you're thinking and feeling, the more comfortable they're going to be with you. And so, as a quick example of this, if I say to you, without showing you gestures, if I say to you, I have some ideas for you and your organization that I think can radically improve your communication, and I want you to trust me around that. Or if I say to you, I have some ideas for you and your organization that I think can radically improve your communication, I want you to trust me around that. My guess is you have a bias towards the person whose gestures you saw rather than the gestures that you didn't see. Now, just one last thing. I might be a bit, bigger than most people need to be. I might do this a little bit more than you think is necessary for you, and that's probably true. I'm demonstrating. I want you to see this really clearly. My challenge for you is how can you gesture just that little bit more than you normally would around this virtual communication space? There's my answer for you.
Wow, that's very insightful. And I feel like when we talk about body language, coming from a layman's perspective, we don't usually think about how our body language reflects upon people. I think everybody's first impulse is to just jump on the other person's body language and try to understand what they want to infer from them. So that definitely does provide a lot more insight, and I'll definitely be more open while doing conversations. So that's a tip that will forever stay with me. So thank you.
That's lovely.
Mark, you're a best-selling author on human behavior. So while we spoke about body language, we'd also love to learn about that. We'd love to know your insight in the form of a gist from your book.
Yeah, okay. So one of my books, Tame the Primitive Brain, 28 Ways in 28 Days to Manage the Most Impulsive Behaviors at Work, puts forward a model around how you can understand how people will approach you and be comfortable around you and that space. And one of the first elements of that model is around raising people's status. So status, from my point of view, is your understanding of how much valuable resource you control. And if you feel that you're in control of some valuable resource, your status goes up, and what happens is your brain starts producing dopamine, which is the neurotransmitter that tells you, hey, things are going to get good, this is a good environment for us, and literally it starts your motor neurons going, and you will move forward into that space. If somebody leans forward into your conversation, I can guarantee dopamine was something to do with that, okay? And we want people to lean forward into our conversations rather than being repelled away from them. So a simple way to do that is help raise other people's status. Help them know that you think and you feel that they are in control of something that is valuable. Now, valuable resource can change from culture to culture, from group to group. You know, what you in your organization thinks is really valuable, me in my organization might be of lower value. Doesn't mean that you've misjudged what you think is valuable. It's just we're part of different groups, different societies, different cultures, different countries, different departments in an organization will have a different idea sometimes of what is a valuable resource. So, in order to really connect with people and raise their expectations of it's a good environment for them, you need to start to learn what is valuable to that group and let them know that you feel they hold some control of those valuable resources. I hope that made sense to everybody out there.
Yes, yes, it did. And I feel like just like I am thinking about this right now, our viewers and listeners are too, that, we've actually observed these things that you want people to lean in while you talk to them about something. And even though we've always known that that makes us feel more confident about the message that we're trying to put past, at the same time, this reasoning behind it was not something that we probably would have considered. So it's
No,
wonderful
absolutely.
to learn how interesting all of this is and, to gain that insight. Thanks a lot for that.
My
And
pleasure.
Mark, you've trained G7 leaders and Fortune 500 CEOs. So could you share your observations on the diversity that exists across leaders and maybe some common traits that you've noticed?
Yeah, like all of my work, I really like to concentrate on the common traits, as you were saying.
Yeah,
Diversity is fantastic. The more diversity, the better. One of the issues with diversity is that we meet a lot of behaviors and people that we don't quite understand fully. And for us as human
absolutely.
beings, as individuals, that can cause anxiety, fear even, and we all know the results of fear that comes around other people. So obviously we always need to keep learning about other people. Here's the way I try and learn about other people is I'm looking for the similarities because, I know, you're from a different country than I am. You're from something of a different society. You grew up in a different place. There could be so many differences between you and me. But then I look at you and I go, hang on, human being, roughly 2 arms, 2 legs and a head, in roughly the same place as me, same GI tract. You're fighting gravity like I'm fighting gravity right now. We're dealing with some of the same most basic factors around being a human being and trying to connect with other human beings. And I'm always thinking, what is the similarity that we can play upon there? And so let's talk about some of the, most powerful people that I've worked with. Human beings just like you and me, fighting gravity just like you and me. And here's the most important thing, anxious about being understood, being recognized just like you and me, here's the most important thing, accepted. Just like you and me. Just like you and me, they woke up in the morning going, will I be accepted today? I hope I'm accepted today. When they were born, that infant came out looking for acceptance. And so any human being that I come across, I'm thinking, how can I communicate in a way that helps them know that, yes, I understand there's differences and I may never understand those differences fully. How could I? How could I? But can I accept the world that they feel that they're in and let them know that I accept that? That's, I think, the universal system that we all have to put in place in order to communicate much better and for us to be understood and accepted much better. First of all, you got to put out acceptance before anybody's going to do it to you.
Yes, yes, absolutely. That is wonderful. And it's amazing to gain insight on how we have such varied opinions of what it means to be in a certain role. But at the end of the day, it all just boils down to the fact that both of us are literally the same. So that definitely does put in a lot of insight. Thank you. And lastly, Mark, do you have a quote that defines your feelings the best way about the future of work, workplace, and you?
Yeah, so look, we all know that just recently our ideas of work, our ideas of professional, our ideas of where work happens and how it happens and do we have work anymore have changed
Yes.
radically and
Yep.
will continue to change. And we're all having to deal with that. But here's my quote around this is we are, as human beings, social mammals, and that will never, ever, ever change. And if you just keep that in mind as the world changes around you, that you and I and everybody watching this, you watching this right now, the one thing is never going to change is that we're social mammals, and there is behaviors and ideas and needs and desires and community that will continue regardless of what happens around us. That will always continue. Hold on to that, even as everything changes around you.
Absolutely. And I feel like this pandemic has proven that more than anything else, because all of us have been through such difficult situations. But at the end of the day, we also do realize that that's just temporary, no matter how difficult or long that period may seem like. And at the end of the day, we are social animals. So that was wonderful, Mark. It was great talking to you. It was a very delightful and equally insightful conversation. So thank you so much for giving us that time, and I look forward to speaking with you again.
Thanks very much. That was a wonderful interview.
Thank you.